Iconic in the horror field, and he's a wonderful guy. I'd like to welcome Robert Englund. Was your bus held up that you didn't get here on time?
This is my Dean Martin glass of wine. I'm the old I'm going to pretend like Rich is a Johnny Carson and bring my glass of wine in. Dean Martin used to do.
Well, first of all, it's so great to see you. And it's been how many years since we first met? I want to say since what?
Well, we met before we met because I knew about the Chicago show.
Oh, okay.
See, because when I was a young actor, I would come audition in Chicago. And I knew people that knew you. People from the Goodman Theater and other places.
Sure,
yeah. So I knew about you and I knew about the show. But we didn't officially meet, and then we did officially meet. But it was a long time.
I want to say it was maybe 2010.
And I don't even think it was at a Flashback weekend. I think it was something else.
It might have been, yeah. I'm getting old. I know.
We're both. Yeah. Can I just tell a quick story before we get funny and silly? And this is an homage to you. But today I had a young, beautiful lady of a much younger generation who had a full arm vampira tattoo. And I had my flashback weekend to when I was a child, and you were a child, or you weren't even born yet, when in my suburban San Fernando Valley, California neighborhood, a woman, vampira, had her show on local Los Angeles television, and she would run what some people might call old cheesy horror movies.
Sure.
But she was the vampira, but with a little bit of a beatnik, bohemian edge. And it was crossover. All the adults loved it as much as the children. So the adults would watch her do commercials, and they would watch her intros, and they would watch her opening, and then we kids would be left to watch Invasion of the Body Snatchers, OG, or Them with
Sure.
giant ants or something. Of course, we all loved it. We didn't see any camp involved then. And we loved Elvira, because she was this goth vampire girl. But I remember shortly after that one Halloween, all the moms, all the smoking, martini drinking moms with lipstick on the Pall Malls and eyes a little bit red from the chlorine in the small suburban swimming pools, all of them dressed as vampira. And that memory and the warmth of that memory, that alternative bohemian suburban place to go as a child, and to learn about the old horror movies and to see the sense of humor and the fun of that host. And we've had peaks and valleys with that over the years.
Sure.
But you've been through it and you've stuck it out so long, and it's so great, and I'm so proud of your success.
Oh, thanks.
And now, and it's such a wonderful part of the American culture to have the horror movie host as part of the vernacular of popular culture, along with everything else that we celebrate. And anyway, I just want to say I'm really happy to be here. But that little exchange I had today with someone that young, with a tattoo, to commemorate another early horror talk show host, and it was just a great thing, and I knew it was somehow relevant to me being your guest tonight. Thank you.
Sure.
That's all.
Thank you very much. That was so cool. Yeah, talking about horror hosts, it used to be kind of a cyclic thing, that there'd be a lot of them all of a sudden, then it would die off, and there'd be a while, then they'd come back, and it would be for a short time. But now it's like, I've been national for 20-something years, so I guess I broke the cycle.
You not only broke the cycle, but I think also what happened was the new technology kicked in and exposed you to a new audience. because there's something that we love and need. It's hard to find the right equivalent expressions, but it's kind of a comfort food thing, you know? There's kind of a comfort food thing, like there used to be with everybody in America watching Johnny Carson, you know, and talking about it at the water cooler the next day at work. We're more fragmented now, but that doesn't mean we can't seek you out wherever you are, syndicated or otherwise, for that comfort food fix. What's on, you know, Svengoolie tonight? What's the oh my God, Invasions of the Body Snatchers, or Invaders from Mars, or whatever it is. And it's sometimes you just want that, like you want macaroni and cheese. It's just a comfort.
Especially the cheese.
Yeah. I want to put my feet up, and I want to hear him crack some puns, and that's what I want to do. And you've reached this wider audience, and I think we realize now that it's just something that's part of the fabric of American entertainment.
One thing that I've noticed a lot, yes, please, thank you. When I do these appearances, I have, you know, people come up and first of all, they thank me for doing this, which is so nice. But one of the nicest things I hear is, first of all, that entire families will get together to watch the show, all different ages. And I don't think there's too many shows that happens with these days. And something I've always told about is I have people come up to me and say, I used to watch you as a kid and I watch you with my kids.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
It is.
Well, I always thought Nightmare on Elm Street films, I always thought, because I always wanted to be, and still am, a movie actor. That's all I wanted, you know, and I went through a lot of dues to become that. But that thing happens where I realize how many people saw me on video or on DVD with their family, something I never anticipated. And accumulatively, I've learned that over the years from coming to the cons, because some people's parents are gone now, but they have memories of their dad with steak knives, you know, scotch tape to his hand, you know, on the screen door to the kitchen, you know, going ooh, like Joe Flaherty, you know, or a stepfather or a stepmom that was cool, or an older brother and sister, you know, that brought us into that, and that becomes that generational thing that you're experiencing now, and it's kind of amazing for us, you know, because we're just traveling players.
Definitely, yeah.
But you know, there's something about that word. If you've seen old theater programs, it says, the players tonight, Othello, Iago, or the players tonight, Romeo, Juliet, or players not welcome, no actors allowed in the 19th century. But we're players. And I sometimes think, do you remember back when we were all kids and there was somebody on your street or on your block that had a really cool bedroom with cool models in it that he put together, you know, with glue, or they had really cool stuff, toys to share, or maybe they had a swimming pool, or they were just a cool kid, you know, who turned you on to Dwayne Eddy or Elvis Presley or the Beatles or the Stones or the Who or whatever. And that was the kid that you wanted to play with.
Sure, yeah.
Can Rich come out to play? Can Robert come out to play? Knock, knock, knock. Mrs. Englund, Mrs. Cause, can they come out to play? And we get to still be the players.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's not a burden, but boy, is it a privilege.
It certainly is.
And
Yes.
we're so grateful, you know.
You were talking about young Robert. As a boy, what was the first movie that actually scared you?
Well, it's, you know, I'm an old fart, and it's, things start to blend in memory.
Yeah,
I
know.
do remember being very intrigued by Stuart Granger in King Solomon's Mines.
Oh.
And I do remember being very freaked out by Eva Marie Saint's brother, who was thrown off the roof at the opening of Marlon Brando's On the Waterfront.
Yes.
Okay, that because my mother and father took me to to see everything. One of the first things that really freaked me out, and I probably was 7 years old, was the giant squid in Walt Disney's, and don't reject Walt immediately here, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah.
And to this day, I am fascinated by the Nautilus and the sailor that the giant squid with his snapping beak grabs with a tentacle and thrashes about, and he comes back down into the hold with Captain Nemo and Peter Lorre, James Mason, Kirk Douglas, and he turns to the camera and he has giant sucker marks from the suction of the tentacles of the giant squid. Well, that made little Robbie Englund poop his pants. And so that's a really old, that's still seared in my brain, that moment. Now here's the great follow-up to that. So my rich cousins, the father was a film editor, and he eventually did Bonanza. We all remember Bonanza way back. But early on, I think he was doing Annie Oakley or some other, or My Little Margie, or some early 50s television show on Kineoscope before they had tape. But he was one of those families that was invited to the first day at Disneyland.
Oh, wow.
And I got to come with my cousins, my rich cousins, and I think I was there the second day.
Wow.
And it was this huge drive in those days in California through the orange groves. But I remember seeing they had the Nautilus at Disneyland from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and it was cut in half. So all you film goers out there understand that's a cutaway. That's how they get the camera in there. And they had the actual window that was like a kaleidoscope that closed and opened. And they had Peter Lorre's wardrobe, Kirk Douglas's wardrobe, James Mason's wardrobe, all the props from the interior of the submarine. And when the window opened, this is the early 50s now, you looked out and there was dappled lighting and blowing seaweed, and they had the actual giant squid there, lit like it had been lit on the soundstage.
Wow.
That ride became the submarine ride at Disneyland with the faux submarines that went underwater. And you'd sit in it with your parents and look out a porthole. And they'd go dive, 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 and all the sound effects, etc. But originally, it was where they had the giant squid.
Yeah.
And they figured out how to light it. And of course, the seaweed and everything moved because of fans that you couldn't hear because you were on the other side of the wall. But that also, I think, prompted me to love the mystery of special effects. Cheesy, naive, beginning, and then becoming more sophisticated.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this, but to this day, Robert will not eat calamari.
No, it's
Really one of the worst things.
I love this guy.
You mentioned some names of Shakespearean actors or characters. You did Shakespeare, did you not?
Boy, I'm doing a hard turn from calamari. Okay. I just remembered that I understudied Mosca in Volpone. Wow. Mosca is Latin for fly, or Italian for fly. And I can do that, but no, I had several years when I was a bit of a snob, and I confess to this, I was the guy in the turtleneck and the corduroy jacket with the patches on the sleeves. Oh, I will only do Shakespeare, I'll never do television. No, I'm going to do, what happened was, I'd been an ex-gymnast, and I was very successful in the Shakespearean clowns. And I had a huge success with Comedy of Errors, and a huge success in a decent production of Merchant of Venice, playing Lancelot Gobbo, Shylock's servant. And so that gave me such confidence. But what I didn't realize was the Shakespearean clowns are not written in iambic pentameter, the Shakespearean rhythm of poetry. They're more free prose. You know, they're much easier to do. The only problem is all the dirty words we don't know anymore. We don't know when it's a dirty joke because we don't use those words or vocabulary anymore. So you have to like learn what that dirty word is in the Shakespearean slang, and you have to picture it, and then you kind of, if you really got to help, if you really want to help yourself, you kind of accompany yourself with a gesture, and then you can get the laugh, you know, whether it's a fart joke or whatever it is, you can get the laugh. But yeah, I did a lot of Shakespeare, and because it was difficult, and because it was so cool, and because I thought the theater in America, and I was a regional theater actor, and listen, nobody in the world had better theater than this town, this damn town, Chicago. For years, you had a little bit of competition from Minneapolis with the Guthrie Theater, but you guys had the Goodman Theater, you had early Steppenwolf, you had the Organic Theater, you had all those extraordinary actors that were not only modern, but you had all the actors that had been here for years during Drury Lane and all of that. And I used to come up here to audition, and I know that's not even counting Second City.
Sure.
And the fact that you have changed American comedy
right.
in the last 25 years and the first 25 years of the 20th century and the 21st century with all the people you sent to SNL. You know, I mean, I remember being in a bar with George Wendt,
Oh, wow, yeah.
who loved Chicago, and he was showing me around to his haunts in Chicago. And I remember being in and I kind of want to say it was a sports bar, but I'm not sure, but an old one. And every single person there was funny. They were funny. Chicago funny, you know. And I also remember going to the old pump room.
The pump room, sure.
And seeing a photo on the wall of Bill Murray with two prostitutes. And Bill Murray, when they caught him doing because they had those phones at the tables, and he was just mugging, you know, for a photographer. But his bit was, he picked up the telephone, he went to the prostitutes for you. You know, but that's that Chicago smart. And I think because you guys live here and you're from here and surrounding areas, you guys forget what Chicago funny smart is. And then the other thing is I went to Hillary Rodham Clinton's suburb. Maybe somebody here knows what I'm talking about.
Ridge?
Yeah, and
sure.
I did a photo layout for a Chicago paper there. And it was like a dream of what America should be, that town. It's within the perfect movie theater.
That's where I went to high school.
What?
I went to high school
Are you
in Park
kidding?
Ridge.
That's what? It's paradise to me.
Was a beautiful
what?
place.
Were you bullied? Come on. So, were you bullied? No. But I mean, to me that was like American Norman Rockwell paradise, and I didn't know about that. Just like I used to come here all the time in the winter. I finally came here to do a movie called The Mole Man of Belmont Avenue.
Oh,
for
sure.
some people from Second City. But I was here. I worked in the summer. Chicago is a paradise in the summer. You can walk everywhere. The plows don't put the snow on top of your car. Every intersection, there's a lesbian softball team, a Thai restaurant, an Irish bar, and an Italian restaurant. What more do you need?
Now, talking about comedy, I've always felt that comedy and horror have an association. I think right away, I think of Freddy, who is doing the most terrible, gruesome things, and then he's like the Bob Hope of horror. He throws in the little zinger.
Oh yeah. Well, we jumped the shark a couple of times. Some people think it was Nightmare 6, Freddy's dead, but what people have to remember is, and God rest his soul, Wes, has to remember is, Wes had jokes in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm your boyfriend now. He puts Tina's face on. He cuts his fingers off and they squirt green blood. Freddie's doing jokes all through part one. We just played to the audience a little bit too much.
Sure.
And part of that is the editor's fault, because you have to check the balance from the first reel to the last reel.
Sure.
And see if you've overloaded it. Sometimes I gutted somebody and lifted them up and gave them the best Al Pacino kiss of death. And that same take, they had me gut them and crack wise, like a Dirty Harry line, right? Make my day, a kind of a jokey line. And they would rely on that. The editors, because it's a percussive, bump, it's a rim shot. They get the rhythm of the joke. It makes it easy for them to end the scene and cut to the next scene. But there were times when they shouldn't have done that, where we stepped over the line. But I always think of Freddie as a cruel clown.
Sure, yeah, that makes perfect sense. and
Are you waving to us?
Oh, hi, nice to see you too.
Oh, hi. Is that how big our members are? What is it? Oh, I'm sorry.
We have what may be a surprise for you. We have some photos that were found on the internet, and not that kind.
I've been trapped.
And I believe that our friends back there will put them on. Here it is. These were taken at
Yeah. All right, there I
Industrial
am.
Light and Magic, yes.
Now look at this is, first of all, this is George Lucas's great, fabulous special effects team's studio. Thanksgiving, probably 76. Mark Hamill is sleeping on my couch. The girl next to me with the glasses wrote a little movie some of you may have heard of. My title, The Lost Boys.
Oh, yeah.
And we're all visiting ILM before they ever went to Marin, before they ever went to San Francisco, before they ever went up to George Lucas Skywalker Ranch. They were in a crappy studio in the San Fernando Valley, and they're all LA boys. And I saw, this day, I saw a Millennium Falcon, 1/3 scale, every rivet, every asteroid, smoke bleached wound on the ship. It was the most extraordinary thing I'd ever seen. And I'm a guy that used to love my Revell
Sure.
model
Models,
kits,
yeah.
I didn't sniff the glue. I just made the World War II aircraft carrier. More parts, Dad. But yeah, that's what that photo is.
We have another one too here. There's Mark.
Mark.
Inspecting the Death Star, I
That's
believe.
the Death Trench.
Oh, the trench that he would fly through. in the movie.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And one more. He's looking at, talk about the Millennium Falcon. There it is.
That's one of the big ones. And the detail, you guys, never before in the history of film was detail that amazing. And that's one of the things they brought to it, so they could do these they weren't digital yet, but they were program cameras that they could move over a model, and then they could add lighting, and they could add other special effects that we had in those days to it and sell it to you.
It's pretty amazing.
By the way, both these young men look fine in jeans.
Did I ever tell you my Mark Hamill story?
No.
Well, this was a few years ago, and I'm going through my fan email, and there's one that says, "Hi, I'm Mark Hamill. I'm a big fan of your show. I've always enjoyed hosting horror shows, and I wanted to get in touch with you if we could talk." And I'm thinking, this is great if it's real. If it isn't, it's like the Ethiopian prince who's going to give me $2 million. And we went back and forth a couple of times, and I said, I really want to believe this, but I'm not sure that it's really you. And he said, okay, well, send me your phone number. And I thought, this is the other Ethiopian prince.
Nigerian prince?
Yes.
Yeah, like a loan you some money.
Exactly. And I said, I'm just not sure. And I remembered he was on Twitter. So I said, I tell you what, if you would put a message on Twitter, I'll know it's you. So he says, okay, I'll do that. So I'm waiting 1 hour, nothing. 2 hours, nothing. 3 hours, I'm like, okay. Then up comes a tweet from Mark Hamill saying, the cool thing that I discovered this summer was Svengoolie on MeTV. And I immediately sent him my phone number. He called. We talked for maybe, I want to say 25 minutes. And it was just so nice of him. You've probably seen him in little clips on our show that he's been kind enough to send in to us. I was blown away by that.
Well, I saw Mark on the national tour of Amadeus, and I always knew how funny Mark was. But I saw him on the national tour of Amadeus, and he was brilliant. And I saw it with Di Bradley from England, and I saw the movie with Tommy Hulse, and I love Tommy Hulse's work. But Mark was my favorite Mozart of all. And not just because I knew him, no. He was my favorite Mozart. He was just wonderful, wonderful in it. There's so much humor in that role in the original play, from Broadway. And he hit all the beats. And we know how important that is.
Yes.
And how difficult that is.
Very difficult. Yeah. Speaking of Mark again, I know we've told this story probably before, but were you partially responsible for him to audition?
No, I'm not responsible. No.
Well, you're not irresponsible.
Let me tell this story one more time, and just so you guys hear it, because the internet mutates stuff.
Yes.
It doesn't mean to. It's not bad. It's not, but it's malicious, but it happens. Mark and I and several other people were dear, dear friends in the early and mid 70s, and Mark was starring in a television series right down at the Mary Tyler Moore Studios. And Mark was a huge television star at this time. And I was doing like one movie every 6 to 9 months. And then I would collect unemployment. Mark was buying the Heineken. We would watch old Bob Newhart reruns together and old Mary Tyler Moore reruns together. And Mark turned me on to the Kinks, to Monty Python, to all kinds of great stuff. And I desperately wanted to be in Apocalypse Now because I had read the script. Well, I was too young to play the Cookie, the Frederick Forrest role. If there's any children here, put your hands on their ears, but the famous line, "Fucking tigers!" But I could do a great Southern accent, and he was Cajun, and I could have figured that out. So I went in for that. I finally got my interview for Apocalypse Now, and I go in, and Fred Roos is there, the big producer, and I go in, and they immediately let me know that that part's been cast, and I'm downcast. And then they say, but we're going to take your photo for The Surfer, with Lawrence Fishburne, who surfs behind the PT boat,
right,
in Vietnam. But that somebody told me, we're really looking for somebody that looks like a kid. And I had worn as much of a beard as I could grow then to look older for the Freddie Forrest part of the Cook. But I know that's off. And I'm dejected, and I'm starting to walk out of the office, and I'm wearing skin-tight green Levi's. I weigh 165 pounds. I'm solid surfer muscle. I've got a faded green military shirt hanging open over a wife beater, military green. I've got my work boots on. I've got a pair of fake dog tags on. And I'm walking out, and Fred Roos, the producer, walks me across the hall. He says, "Come with me a minute. Apparently, George Lucas," and I go, "The guy that did American Graffiti? George Lucas is directing some space movie." And they're having a problem with one of the characters. Yeah. So I go in there, and they look at me, and apparently at one point in time, they wanted the Harrison Ford role, Han Solo, to be older, like the uncle that comes to Thanksgiving and lets the kids smoke a joint, the cool uncle. And I'm not sure if it was Tom Selleck, I don't know who else, but some people had turned them down for this space movie. And Harrison Ford was under contract to Zoetrope, I think, still. Like Freddie Forrest was under contract to Zoetrope for Apocalypse Now. But I went in, they took a Polaroid of me, that's it. With a lamp on the ground with the shade off. I knew I wasn't, I knew they didn't think I was right. But when I was walking out, I saw some sides, which is the little bit of script that they stapled together for the actors coming in to read for certain parts. And the name on it was Skywalker. I just thought that was the coolest name in the world. And I thought it meant, oh, what a cool thing, they're gonna have an Indian in outer space. You know? What a great idea, because I thought it was an Indian name, Skywalker. Sounds like a great name, you know, for a Native American, right? Anyway, I just stuck it in my pocket. I went across the street, great bar, it's famous now, it wasn't famous then, called the Formosa. I was drinking Irish whiskey then. I had an Irish whiskey with one of Elvis Presley's sound mixers and Errol Flynn's double. And I looked at the sides, yeah, Luke Skywalker, Luke Skywalker. And then I read the description, and it wasn't Native American. It was a futuristic name for a young prince-like guy. I put the thing in my pocket, finished my Bushmills, got in my Roadster, drove across Laurel Canyon, pulled up to my apartment, and there in front of my door were Mark Hamill's Acme boots kicked off, and I knew, oh, Mark's here. You know, he must be done shooting or he must be done rehearsing. I go in, walk to the refrigerator, ice cold Heineken courtesy of Mark Hamill. Mark's on my couch in his socks, watching the Bob Newhart show. It's like 4:30 in the afternoon, and I said, Mark, did you know George Lucas? We both loved American Graffiti. Do you know George Lucas is doing this space movie? And Mark, he doesn't really. And I said, here's the sides. I said, this really sounds right for you. And Mark gets up and cracks open a Heineken, looks at it, and then he gets on the phone and calls his agent. Now, in all fairness, his agent may have submitted him already for this role, and he was just waiting to hear back. But I'm pretty sure I'm the guy. I'm the guy that told Mark about the project.
Fair enough.
I'm the guy that told Mark about the project, and Mark called his agent and gave his agent a little poke. That's all I'm saying. Mark was, you have to understand, Mark was already a television star. I'm a sidekick now. I was a sidekick. I do one movie a year. Big stars. I sidekicked Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jeff Bridges, Jan Michael Vincent, who was the biggest things in sliced bread back then. People forget that. Original Mechanic, world's greatest athlete, one of the biggest hit Disney movies ever made, blah, blah, blah. And so I was the sidekick, and also predominantly a Southern sidekick, even though I'd never played a Southerner before professionally on the stage. But Mark was a definite television golden boy at this time. And Mark was picking up the bill for the Heinekens, you know, and taking us out, you know, for tuna melts at the neighborhood coffee shops and stuff. But I lived so close to where he worked, and he loved my girlfriend and I so much that he was always around, you know, and turning us on to stuff like, again, like Monty Python and like the Kinks and things like that. And it was just this, I tell this to you, and it has nothing to do with me contributing to Mark being Luke Skywalker. But I want you to think of the Tarantino movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And for me, and for the girl that wrote Lost Boys, and for the boy that became Luke Skywalker, for the little boy that became Freddy Krueger, and Willie from V, it was our Once Upon a Time in
That's so
Hollywood.
cool. Wow. Robert, I want to thank you for doing this, but also, in all the years I've known you, you've been very kind to me. You've given me some great advice along the way, and I really appreciate that. And you even inscribed something to me once saying that I was your favorite horror host. And if that doesn't mean a lot to me, I don't know what would.
Well, let me just say one thing. You know, after this event is over, I would like to talk to you privately about the Rubber Chicken Commission, because I watched Svengoolie today have a photo opportunity with about 100 men with a rubber chicken. I almost said fried chicken. That's the wine speaking. But I love that there's an entire generation of people walking around with rubber chickens.
Let's hear it for Robert Englund, everybody. And now, how about
Thanks,
a
Rich.
word from our sponsor?